We talk a lot about what spring practice means for the players, the incoming freshmen, and even the veterans. But it's also really important for the coaches as well. It allows coaches like Jim Knowles to tinker with some things. And the things he is tinkering with currently, I do believe will lead to certain players being successful when the Buckeyes take the field in the fall.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Thursday, March the 9th in the year 2023, and I'd like to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen or first watch of every single day. During this episode, we will discuss Jaxon Smith-Njigba's Ohio State wide receiver, Mount Rushmore. Also, the Buckeyes, the basketball team, move on to the second round of the Big Ten Conference Tournament. But before we get to any of that, spring practice is underway. It's a great time for you, the fan, for myself, the coaches and the players, everybody involved with Ohio State football. This is a great time. For the players, the incoming freshmen, the veterans, maybe you've been there for 2 or 3 years and you're trying to figure out if this is the year you become a starter at Ohio State. It's a great time for them. I love it. Looking forward to it. Can't wait for the spring game. I also can't wait to see how a certain decision by Jim Knowles impacts certain players in the fall. 2 specifically. Well, I could say 3, but specifically 2. I'll add a third to the mix as well. Jack Sawyer, Caden Curry, and Mitchell Melton. Now, you may say, why in the world are you going that way? Jim Knowles has decided to not use the jack position during the spring. Now, you may want to say, Jay, that was Jack Sawyer's position. Well, no, Jack Sawyer is solely a defensive end, and he's not going to be doing double duty between the jack position and the DM position, which I think is great for him. For numerous reasons. I think it's a great move for him and the defense to have Jack Sawyer solely playing that position. Caden Curry could possibly play both, but even though you know how I feel, if you hadn't heard, I still am a person that believes the jack position should be a hybrid linebacker safety combo, which is why I don't believe Caden Curry is ideal for that spot. But Mitchell Moulton's different. A little bit different. And I think it's a guy Jim Knowles has pinpointed and decided maybe this is a spot for him. Flashed a little bit, has some good play, had some signs of growth, signs that Jim Knowles thinks he could use a little bit of that. But Mitchell Melton's still recovering from an ACL injury that he suffered a year ago. Not sure if it's the move to implement somebody else there in that spot when maybe that's Mitchell Melton's once he gets healthy. But Jim Knowles is smart. Jim Knowles realizes what it is and why he's doing this. And ultimately, when speaking to the media, he actually discussed some things that happened at Oklahoma State and went on to discuss, well, some things you don't mess with. I'll read a direct quote from Jim Knowles about this very thing. Things that are different at Ohio State, different than they were at Oklahoma State. Quote, by the time I left Oklahoma State, it was almost exclusive. And I knew we wouldn't have that here. We're built more as a 4 down, and our front's pretty darn good. So you don't want to mess with that too much. But I thought they could get up to be a 3rd. And it just didn't, we weren't as productive out of it. You have to go with what works, end quote. And I'm with him. That role was not ideal. That role was not something that I think was needed at Ohio State. I think if you went 4-2-5 or even 4-3 and just knock out a safety or knock out that nickel corner and just bring in a 3rd linebacker to go traditional look, I think that's more what Ohio State was built for a year ago. And at times it was just not utilized properly. So I am with Jim Knowles. Understanding your personnel is key. It's huge. But once you understand your personnel and you realize in year 1, it didn't really work the way that you wanted it to work, Is it really time right now during spring practice to do that again when you kind of have the same guys on defense? Go with your strengths. Sign of a good coach. Sign of a really good coach. Now, he's not saying he won't use it in the fall. Let's just make that very, very clear. He did not say, and I'm going to read a quote here in a second, and nowhere in this is it going to say that Jim Knowles is not going to use this in the fall. I think the jack might be something that's very situational. We may see less of it because it's needed. Now, Tuimoloau can play a little hybrid. He's a rare athlete, a rare physical specimen. He can play that. His athleticism is not normal for a guy his size. He can do that. Now, I'm not just saying that because of what he did last year. He played some linebacker in high school. Very good, at a very good rate. And so if you want to keep your same base defense personnel out there and still have somebody stand up, Sawyer's not the guy. Tuimoloau is. And you're going to see more. I hope we see more of that this year. Here's Jim Knowles about the decision to not use the jack position very much in spring practice. Quote, I don't know how much we'll be delving into jack this spring. We did not quite use the position as much as I had hoped last year. It just didn't seem to develop with our personnel. And so this spring, I want to focus on the fundamentals of our 4 down and really getting better at the fundamentals, end quote. Smart man. Like, we can nitpick and dive into the numbers and the eye test, the eyes, and say, oh, the defense was not what it should have been last year. Great. But how about we not repeat what happened last year on defense? How about we improve? How about we make decisions that help us be a better football team in the fall? One of them, getting back to the fundamentals. Because if you get back to the fundamentals, if your fundamentals are sound, buddy, just wait and see what happens in the fall. Because what is a sign of a great defense? A defense that is fundamentally sound. And that's not just in football. That's at any level. Let's go back to the mid-2000s. The Detroit Pistons. What was a mark of that defense that was so good and elite? They were fundamentally sound. The Bullies of Baltimore recently had a 30 for 30 on the Baltimore Ravens. Early 2000s, I think it was 2001, won the Super Bowl. What was a mark of that historically great defense? They were fundamentally sound. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tampa 2. What was the mark of that defense with Warren Sapp and the rest of them boys? They were fundamentally sound. What's a mark of Georgia and Georgia's great defense a couple years ago, historically, whatever? Fundamentally sound. Fundamentally sound teams are really, really good, especially when you have elite talent. Ohio State, I do believe, has some elite talent on the team. Once they become fundamentally sound, then add the wrinkles, then add things to create things and be more creative on the defense, and your opponent won't like it. Work on the fundamentals. It'll help the defense be better once they step on the football field in September of 2023. Jaxon Smith-Njigba at the NFL Combine got behind the mic, did a quick video, and discussed his Ohio State wide receiver, Mount Rushmore. I guarantee you will not agree with his list. What is it, y'all? Stick around to find out. This is Locked On Buckeyes. Thanks for making Locked On Buckeyes. Excuse me, wrong ad. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks again for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. Make sure you check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Plus, hear from big name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your fine podcast. So we all know how the media, social media works nowadays, especially with people that are content creators. They all have their own way to get content out. And at the NFL Combine and Njigba, his performance, him being a Buckeye, him being one of the best receiving prospects in this draft, you all know he's going to get a lot of attention. And when he's behind the mic, many people will listen. And so when Njigba got behind the mic, they asked him what his Ohio State wide receiver Mount Rushmore was. And you're going to kind of get and understand why he made it this way. Also, might I add, he didn't put himself on the list. You might put him there. Somebody else might not put him there. But Njigba did not put him there. Wise move. But his list, I don't agree with. I don't at all. You're going to see why when he unveils this. There's also a little trend with this as well. So it kind of makes sense why he made it this way. But, buddy, Mount Rushmore means a little bit. And I'm not going to give you mine. Just going to kind of go through a list of players that could be on it, and you'll see how we get to that conclusion. His list of Ohio State wide receiver Mount Rushmore: Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Brian Hartline. Two guys that are first-round picks, another guy who's going to be a first-round pick, and his wide receiver coach. Okay. Got to give a tip of the cap to you putting your receiver coach on there, your position coach, because that's great. But to be honest with you, I don't know if I'd put any of them. Maybe Olave on there as a Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore to me is not the top four or the best four or your favorite four. It means it's a sign of importance, significance, and something that is kind of helping players be who they are in this moment. Kind of a progression. My NBA Mount Rushmore does not have LeBron James on it. No, my NBA Mount Rushmore is Bill Russell, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan. Now, you may say, Jay, what about Kobe? I'm a Kobe guy. No. What about Wilt? No. I like Will Chamberlain. No. What about LeBron? No. Shaq? No. I believe there's a significance. Bill Russell and what he did, the longevity, winning so many championships, great. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson literally helped the NBA be what it is today, because prior to what they did in the NBA in the 80s, the NBA was not what it was in the 80s. I won't say they saved the league. Some say they did, but they really helped the league transform and be more of a global league. Michael Jordan, enough said. Greatest of all time. This ain't even a basketball podcast, but I figured I'd set that out there, set the record straight. Some of y'all are a fan of somebody else who wore number 23 on a different team. Sorry, y'all. It's Mike. He's the greatest. And so when I think about a Mount Rushmore of wide receivers at Ohio State, this honestly might be a summer series that I do. I remember drafting the best players over the past 20 years at Ohio State. How about we just pick Mount Rushmores at positions? You got four. Do you want to put Terry Glenn in there, or David Boston, or Chris Carter? Let's just be honest now. Those are three guys you could legitimately say are reasons why the receivers at Ohio State are this way, that they started a trend of elite play at wide receiver decades ago. You want to go a little bit further? Do you think Ted Ginn Jr. can be on that list? Maybe. Michael Jenkins, would you put him there? Remember, they don't have to be. Now, granted, Bill Russell's not my top 10 in the NBA. Maybe. It's always a debate, but he's definitely still going to be in my Mount Rushmore because of the importance of what he meant to the league at that time and the league today. So, do you want to put Michael Jenkins in there? I wouldn't say Michael Jenkins is one of the greatest or top five receivers in Ohio State history. Maybe, but his importance, especially at that time, was great. Santonio Holmes, do you want to put him there? Let's get more current. Some might say Michael Thomas deserves to be on the Mount Rushmore, or Terry McLaurin, One of the two I do believe will be on there. I think it's kind of hard, to be honest with you, to have a Mount Rushmore and not have Chris Olave on there of Ohio State wide receivers. His longevity, his time playing, his progression. Literally, if you want to go to a story, how he got an offer at Ohio State when Ryan Day wasn't even at his school to recruit him. He was recruiting somebody else, I believe his quarterback, saw Olave. Lo and behold, Olave wowed him so much, got to know Ryan Day, took a visit to Columbus. Next thing you know, Olave is a Buckeye. So I think Olave is on my Mount. No, he's on my Mount Rushmore. The longevity piece is huge and important because I do think there's something to be said about what Chris Olave did versus what Jaxon Smith-Njigba did. 1-year starter versus a multi-year starter. A guy in Njigba who would have been a multi-year starter if it wasn't for an injury. I think that has to go into account. Now, his 1 year was amazing, but I love the longevity of players. Marvin Harrison Jr. might be on there at the end of this season, but two things hold me back from putting him on there. I'll get to Garrett Wilson here in a second. I don't think Brian Hartline, if you want to put receivers coach, maybe, but I wouldn't put Brian Hartline in my just for Buckeye receivers when he was playing. I don't think he belongs in this conversation. Nothing against him as a person or a player. I just think that this is a different conversation, and he is not going to be in it. But when it comes to Marvin Harrison Jr., only 1 year, man. Like, you've only been a 1-year starter. Yes, we got some glimpses of you as a true freshman, what you did in the Rose Bowl, great. But you're really only a 1-year starter, and you're still playing. I will never put an active player on my Mount Rushmore. That's just my rule. That is just me. And when it comes to Garrett Wilson, it's close. Really, really close. If I want to treat Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave like I treat Larry Bird or Magic Johnson and my NBA Mount Rushmore, okay, cool. But Garrett Wilson is close. I just think Olave is that guy. So I got Olave will stay for me. That's the one we got right. The other three have to be erased. But the Mount Rushmore of Ohio State wide receivers, that's a conversation that's pretty in depth. And I'm going to leave you with this thought. There are a lot of you listening right now, or maybe watching via YouTube, that if I say Terry Glenn or David Boston or Chris Carter or maybe even Santonio Holmes or Michael Jenkins, many of you only have the YouTube to watch clips of them play. Yes, you can go back and watch games of them that they played at Ohio State in the shoe, but you don't have your eyes in live, even if you're watching via the television, live watching them play. And so there is an age gap or maybe even a generational gap. Let's use one of those phrases in regards to a Mount Rushmore. But that doesn't mean myself and other people that I have on the show can't put this together and have fun while doing so. So over the summer, generally when the show goes down to 3 days a week in the summertime, I might do this as a summer series. It'll be fun, a fun one. Quarterback, running back, receiver, not tight end, maybe O-line, I'm not sure, but D-line, linebacker, and DB. If you want to do a Mount Rushmore just for it, show some importance to it, it'll be fun. I will tell you, if we get to that point, Olave will be on my list. The other three guys will not be on mine. What will be on somebody's list? Not really a list, it's a bracket. It's the Buckeyes. Moving on to the second round of the Big Ten Conference Tournament. They beat the Wisconsin Badgers last night in a game that was a blowout at one point. The Buckeyes almost lost the game late. We'll discuss what happened there next right here on Locked On Buckeyes. Sports betting is now legal in Ohio, and Locked On has the perfect show to help new and seasoned gamblers. Download and subscribe to Locked On Bets for daily picks and analysis wherever you get your fine podcasts. So I was trying to be as optimistic as possible when it comes to this basketball team. I know the Big Ten Conference Tournament, they're still playing in it. They played in it recently, and I understand what's going on with this team. I understand that they're playing better basketball than many thought they would. And I get that this team, when they play at their best, they can beat a lot of people. Not anybody in the country. They can beat a lot of people. And so I was trying to hold out optimism and you may want to say hope in regards to Ohio State playing in the Big Ten Conference tournament. They ended up playing Wisconsin a night ago. And that was a game that I said they could win that game. Wisconsin not the best basketball team. They got good they got good players. They got guys that are seasoned. Not really the best basketball team this year. So I said, cool. Ohio State could win this. Going into the half, the Buckeyes took an 18-point lead into halftime. They were up 36-18. Let me tell you, it looked like if they kept this up, oh my gosh, they could shock a lot of people. In attendance for that game was Fran McCaffery, Iowa's head coach, getting a look at the game, scouting the game right there on the press row. And so you got Fran McCaffery there scouting who his next opponent might be, which is now today in the Big Ten Conference tournament. You have the Buckeyes who are playing well. You have Wisconsin who only shot 34% in this game, but scratched and clawed, and made it interesting late in this game. The Buckeyes found a way to win. My thought about this team in this game, I like seeing your leading scorer off the bench. I also like seeing your one of your top three scorers, not be Bryce Sensabaugh, because it shows when Bryce Sensabaugh is not getting off and not playing very well, not as far as like not scoring the basketball at a high rate, you can get other guys involved to score. Bruce Thornton had 15. Justice Sueing had 16. Sean McNeil off the bench had 17 points. Had all but one of the bench points for the Buckeyes a day ago. The other one came from Isaac Likely, and this man can't stay out of foul trouble. Got 2 quick fouls early coming off the bench, came back in, got another foul. And I'm like, buddy, what's going on? Just stay out of foul trouble. I understand you might want to be physical at times, but adjust your game to the way the refs are calling the game, and so be it. But I like it. And Sean McNeil, if he stay locked in like this, if he can literally just give you 10 to 12 to 14 points, 10 to 14 points off the bench, you're going to get Bryce Sensabaugh to give you 18 to 20 in this consistently in this tournament. I expect 20 today against Iowa. I kind of expect Bruce Thornton to give you about 18 to 20. I expect that from Bruce Thornton. Justice Sueing, give me 10 to 12, buddy. Like, there are your points. If Justice Sueing gives you 10 to 12 or 10 to 14 and Sean McNeil gives you 10 to 14 and Sueing gets you a little bit and Likely gets you a little bit, you're probably going to win the game. Remember, amongst that long, what was it like, losing 15 to 16 games that the Buckeyes had, or losing 14 to 15, I lost track. The one game they won was against Iowa. It was at home. It was a 63 to, I think it was a 63. I think it was a 16-point win that they had in that game over the Iowa Hawkeyes. They can beat them. They can win. With the Buckeyes play 2 halves of good basketball, not just 1 half of good basketball and a partial half of good basketball like they did last night. No, if they play good Buckeye basketball for 2 halves, they can beat Iowa. Here's my final thought for this show. I don't think that's going to happen. I won't point. I know sometimes people don't like the pointing. For those of y'all on the YouTube, I don't think it's going to happen. I want this team to win. I want them to be successful. I want them to move on to play Michigan State on Friday at approximately 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Like today's game is at approximately 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It'll tip off approximately 30 minutes after the conclusion of the first game. I want the Buckeyes to win. I want Chris Holtmann to be successful, no matter if I think he's a man for Columbus or not. No matter if I think this team is a good team or not. I want them to win. The problem is, I don't think they're going to win the game, man. I don't. And I'll come on here tomorrow, on tomorrow's show, and tell you I was wrong. I had no problem telling you that. I try my best to be positive, to be optimistic, but sometimes you got to be a realist. I don't think they win this game. And I think NIT is in their future now because of the computers, man, because of the computers. If they don't make the NIT, cool. Go to the CBI, go to the College Basketball Invitational. Go ahead and do that. If you don't want to do any of that, close up shop in the season. Start getting guys ready to go to the transfer portal, because the portal, I do believe, opens up next Monday. I don't like the portal literally ending a day before the NCAA tournament starts. Not a big fan of that, but it's the NCAA. They're trying to make players happy. Guys, Buckeyes win last night, 65-57. I don't think they're going to win this game. They have less than 18 hours, 16 hours in between the end of the first game of the tournament and the beginning of the second game of the tournament. I guess that's what happens when you're a bad basketball team and you lose almost all of your games in the conference. This is what happens to you. You don't get much rest in between games. Better luck next year, guys. Better luck next year. I'm saying it like the season's over. It's not over yet. I just don't think they're going to win out of here on a Thursday. Hope you guys have a great day. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Be tapped in, tuned into Locked On Buckeyes every day, looking to get some clarification and discussion about what we witnessed from the Combine and how it may impact certain players' draft stock in the Combine as well. Guys, out of here. Have a great day. Watch some basketball. Conference tournaments are on. The Buckeyes are still playing. It's a great day to be a Buckeye. It's a great time to be alive, man. Let's enjoy our time together. Let's enjoy the month of March. It's full of basketball. Exciting basketball.